Welcome to the What's Your Ceiling podcast. We're your hosts, Monty Wyatt and Paul Szynski. Wherever you are in life, there is a higher ceiling. This podcast is how you become aware of it and how to take action to push through it. It's time to discover your ceiling. Welcome to the What's Your Ceiling podcast, where we talk about your health, your family, your business. I am Monty Wyatt, and I'm joined today by one of my great friends, Jeffrey Gitomer. Jeffrey, thank you for joining me today.
It's a pleasure to be here, Monty. We are in Iowa today, and most people have never visited Iowa, especially where I grew up. People in New York and New Jersey and Philadelphia have no geographical understanding of anything other than what's within their sight. So if you ever look at the Saul Steinberg map of America on the New Yorker magazine, it shows New York, New Jersey, Vegas, and California. And everything in the middle is a farm. And but what people don't understand is what the farms are. That's what feeds you. That's what, when you get a loaf of bread, like there wouldn't be any bread if it wasn't a farm. And I find it exceptionally interesting to see the difference in the people. Yeah, it's just unbelievable. Just waiting for the plane today, there were people that were willing to talk to you and people that weren't willing to talk to you. And the willing ones were from Des Moines. Hey, what do you think is going to happen? I think the plane's going to take off and then land. But the bottom line is there's an openness about it. And I just love that.
Yeah.
I just totally love that. And no one's afraid to talk to anybody else. There's not mind your own business. No one's wearing a mask. And it's just nice. It was just friendly and nice.
Well, I appreciate you coming to Des Moines to visit. And we were talking, I'm betting it's been at least 16, 17 years since we met. And
oh, yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
And we've known each other through the years. You've come to Des Moines a number of times. Mm-hmm. We've done different events together, and really appreciate the relationship that we have.
Yeah, me too. I think it's important, if you're a podcast listener, a What's Your Ceiling listener, you need to consider, and just write down on a piece of paper, the 5 people that you have the best relationships with in your family, and then the 5 people that you have the best relationships with in your business, and then the 5 people that you have the best relationships with your friends. If you can get those 15 people, and some may duplicate. I hope they do. I hope the business ones are the actual friend ones. But I think it's important for people to understand and identify the value of those relationships, not simply the names of them.
Right.
Because there's so many things that you need when, one of my best friends in Charlotte, business relationship, but friend also, had cancer. So I go to visit him in the hospital because that's the right thing to do, correct?
Yeah.
And you like, what are you doing here? Like, I'm here. And I think my most recent example of that is one of my friends who lives in New York, West Babylon, wherever the hell that is, out on Long Island. His brother passed. His brother was a veteran, Vietnam veteran, and he lived for 50 years past his wounds. School teacher, loved guy, that kind of thing. But in pain for 50 years. Passed. So I got to go. I got to go. It's one of my best friends. I got to go to the wake. And, but I don't say anything. Because if something happens, and I can't go, I don't want to, okay. So I fly to John F. Kennedy Airport, which is among the worst in the world. And I take an Uber for an hour in traffic to this funeral home. And I walk in and I see my buddy and he sees me. He's like, no. I said, yeah, what are you doing here? I said, this is what friends are for. And you go to support the other person. Funerals are exceptionally important to go to. I mean, they may be, maudlin or whatever, but you can't deny the other person their feeling of support. Funerals are not for the dead, they're for the living.
Right.
And so I just showed up like you're supposed to. And I think that there's a whole other element of understanding that goes with the responsibility of a friendship.
Yeah.
Just people don't realize it. Maybe they take it for granted, or maybe they feel a sense of obligation. It's not an obligation, it's a privilege.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't have to go see my friend. I got to go see my friend.
Right.
And since then, by the way, we now talk on the phone every day. Used to be maybe once a week or so, maybe every 2 weeks. Now it's every day. And because we're both Three Stooges fans, we call each other Mo. and hey Mo, it's just one of those things. It's just crazy. And we've been friends for 30 years. So the friendship has deepened over a period of time, not waned.
Yeah. I think it's funny that you call each other Mo, because I grew up with a nickname as Mo.
Really?
In third grade, I got tired of writing all 5 letters of my name, and I stopped at M-O.
Oh.
So I became Mo. So my high school friends, my parents, my relatives all call me Mo.
This is crazy, but things like that stick. My high school homeroom teacher when I was a freshman was a life insurance salesman on the side, taught history or something, and his name was Mr. Stack. And it turns out he went to high school with one of my cousins, a guy named Cal Gitomer. But Cal's real name was Milton. For 4 years, I was known as Milton. And I get thrown out of study hall for talking, Milton! Just like so embarrassing. But that's how it was.
As you talk about relationships, think of all the years that you have been in business. What builds a great relationship to you? What core components do you need to have to build a great relationship?
Number one, a willingness to tell the truth all the time. That's like the first core. Because the minute you don't, you're out.
Yep.
Number two, an openness to accept other people for what they are, because most of the time they have tragic flaws. Yeah. And sometimes it's a physical thing. I don't want to get into it too much because we're in a weird world right now where everyone gets offended by everything. So I'm not going to say sometimes it's fat people, but but you have to have that, and you have to have a desire to build a relationship. Well, that comes when you find things in common. Mm-hmm. And I was taught by the great Wyatt Woodsmall that it goes way beyond things in common to really build that depth of relationship. You need to have shared values. That just totally blew me away. And so me and Rizzo, for example, our shared value is humor, the Three Stooges, or some funny thing that, and what makes humor funny. He did stand-up comedy for almost 20 years. And I'm going crazy. And one of my friends is a guy named Pat Hazel, who you don't know, but he wrote for Seinfeld for 8 years. And he and Rizzo did a talk at the National Speakers Association on what makes funny. And it was like, it's compelling.
Yeah.
When you know how to be funny because you can think funny and write funny. And then you start to recognize funny. And I've taught my children, think funny first.
Yeah.
And when you do, it's like a whole other thing. You don't think like, well, that's a bunch of crap. It's raining outside. You can't do that. I feel like people don't understand the value of humor in a relationship. Because when you can laugh together, it's like tacit approval for what the other guy says.
Yeah.
And my little daughter, Gabrielle, me and my wife, Jen, and Gabrielle are walking to the beach. We're almost at the ocean. And Jen goes, it smells like a fish store here. And Gabrielle goes, Jen, this is where the fish live before they get to the store. Because I've taught her to think funny first. Not like, what are you complaining about? Right? It's a matter of what's funny. And I love that.
That's awesome.
And it's, unfortunately, with me and my family, we're New Jersey people, so there's a sarcasm built into the humor, but it's still there. It's sarcastic is funny if you do it right. Because I grew up, I listened to Howard Stern before he was Howard Stern. And he was way funnier then. Now it's like, I don't know, there's too much swearing and too many silly things, but it's a whole other issue.
Yeah.
But I think if you start out listening to funny and understanding funny, then you automatically get funny. So I watch all the sitcoms, I listen to all the record albums of the comedians that were popular during my time, and latched onto that. Always went to comedy clubs every weekend. Always did something that involved humor. And that carries into your relationship conversation because you're thinking about funny, and that relaxes the conversation, always. Because you don't want to be, well, the new war is going to come. I don't want to know about the war.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no time for that.
Yeah.
Because if you can't affect it, then leave it alone, because it's going to affect you.
Uh-huh.
That's the secret there. It affects you. And I'm hell-bent on not being affected by the crap of the world.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that our listener, the achiever, captures those couple things. To build deep relationships, you got to have shared values.
Yep.
And make it so you laugh together.
Isn't it so interesting? No, not things in common.
Yeah.
Shared values.
Shared values.
So deep. It's just an eye-opener for me, because I'd always stress building rapport and finding things in common and all that crap. But shared value means it's automatically something different.
Mm-hmm.
Literally automatically.
Yeah. That's much different than things in common.
Oh, yeah.
Much deeper.
Yeah, well, we both grew up in Cleveland. Okay, that's great, but we hated Cleveland. You know what I mean? But we went to the same college and rooted for the same teams and went to all the football games and that kind of thing. That's a deeper shared value.
Yeah.
Iowa State, for example.
Absolutely.
Those damn Cyclones.
You bet. Gotta love the Cyclones.
Oh, yeah. You don't have to, but it helps. If you're out here, there's only two kinds. Hawkeyes or Cyclones.
And you got to choose red.
Yeah. Yours the other ones are black and yellow or something?
Black and gold, yeah.
That's interesting.
Cardinal and gold, black and gold.
I'll tell you, it's evident in the city when you see all these people wearing the... I got on the plane and a guy had the football jersey from Iowa State on, and I go Cyclones.
Tell me, from your experience, what can hurt a relationship?
Well, the biggest thing, and this is crazy, but you're going to nod your head. As soon as I say it, you're going to crazy. You think it's crazy at the beginning, but if you don't tell the truth, you lose it immediately. Okay. And then the second level of that is not doing the right thing. So it's not just a lie, it's also a misdeed.
Yeah.
So those two things can wreck everything. And it's sad because it doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
There's an old saying that goes, the truth hurts. Right, it hurts. But you can't not tell the truth and think you're going to get away with it. I mean, that's absolutely nuts, because eventually it all comes out. I think that there's an ability for everybody to go to that next level of truth by being vulnerable enough. You have to be vulnerable, because sometimes you're going to hurt other feelings, sometimes you're going to get hurt yourself. So there's a vulnerability that also deals with that friendship.
Right.
Do the right thing, say the right thing, be vulnerable.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Say the right thing, do the right thing, and be vulnerable.
Yep.
That's great.
And do it all the time. There's a consistency about it. You can't today I'm going to lie.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
Oh, I really appreciate you coming on the show again and being a part of the conversation. It's
a pleasure.
You've come out to visit Des Moines a number of times, and I've been down to visit you a couple times as well. And I just love the learnings from each of our experience and our shared values.
Yeah, me too.
And it is about growth, and I think that's a shared value that we have, is constant learning, constant growing, and breaking through ceilings.
And I think this is important. The way all this comes together is through this podcast. And so podcasts, when we first met, no one even knew what a podcast was.
No.
They didn't exist.
Nope.
And now it's like a way of life. And once you see that and once you feel that, it's a way of expressing new ideas, closeness, trading stories, being funny, whatever the circumstance is, and then the world can be exposed to it. Literally, the world can be exposed to it.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's been so much fun doing these podcasts just to get to know people and dig deep into what their experiences are. Tell us, what's your ceiling is the name of our podcast, and we talk about breaking through things. What's something that you're breaking through right now?
Interesting. Even though I don't look it, I'm 77. And breakthrough has to do with health as much as anything. Because the average American dies like at 74, so I'm already +3 on the totem pole there. And I promised my daughter that I'd hit 100. Well, you have to understand yourself in order to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So you got to go to doctors in order to be able to understand yourself, and they take blood or they whatever they do. But I've decided to have an Eastern doctor and a Western doctor. The Western one is typical medicine where they don't really cure you, they just give you a bunch of pills. But the Eastern one is holistic, and they deal in cure, not in circumstance, like symptom. They deal with actual problem. And I just had this big, I don't know, it's invasive, but you have to to find out if you have any plaque in your arteries. I have none. 0 plaque in any artery in my body, which for a person who has abused himself as much as I have, I didn't call it a medical report, I just called it a modern miracle. But it made me feel good.
Yeah.
Like it just, like all of a sudden I'm healthier because you got a good report, from your doctor or whatever the deal is. I still have issues, but that was a bonus play.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so now it's making me go deeper into health.
Huh.
So my ceiling is actually my floor at the same time, because I don't want to land on the floor. I want to break through the ceiling. And I believe that I have to do the right thing for myself more often.
Yeah.
And most people sacrifice themselves, and I'm not one of those. I'm selfish.
So when you say do the right thing for yourself, how has that changed your behaviors?
Diet, less sugar, less wheat, and then more making sure that all my things are working. So that might mean different vitamins that I take for B12 or whatever.
Yep.
And but they're recommended by a doctor, so I get the best recommendation for me based on my blood work or whatever. And so I'm creating my own ladder that I'm climbing to break through the ceiling. The ceiling is 100.
Yeah.
And so if I can get to 101, I've busted the ceiling. But until then, I have to work at it. And the ladder's a very slow moving ladder to be able to climb.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, I appreciate you sharing that. That's great to hear. Not many people think that way.
Really?
Very few people think of their own health first.
Oh.
Isn't that interesting?
When you're sick, you can't do shit.
No.
I mean, you just, you're focused on getting better.
Yeah.
How do you feel? Horrible. What are you doing? Nothing. Right? And that's your opportunity to binge watch something stupid.
Right.
I don't do that. I'm just hanging out and having a good time, reading.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And chicken noodle soup, which is our heritage.
Well, to our achievers out there, I want to say thank you for joining us. And again, a couple key points that I learned from Jeffrey, go deeper into your own health, make sure you're taking care of yourself. You got to take care of yourself before you can take care of other people.
Correct.
I think that's a powerful thing. And say the right thing, do the right thing, and be vulnerable. So thanks for joining us today. Appreciate you joining our show.